bro. We're about to just turn off the guest request and just pull from people from the chat. What's going on? Do you support Trump? Okay, they left. All right, we're just going to try to pull from the chat, you guys. At this point, I'm only going to be accepting people from the chat. So if you want to come up here and debate because you are an American adult that supports Trump, just spam MAGA down below in that chat. What's going on? Do you support Trump, Mr. Chase?
Yes, I do.
All right, see what I mean? Like, look at that. I start pulling from the chat. First guest up is a Trump supporter. I think that is definitely the better way to get people up on the live. So, Mr. Chase, the real talk here. Why the hell do you support the current administration?
Because I think mass immigration to our country doesn't benefit our economy.
Okay, are you driving?
No.
Phenomenal. So actually, immigration thing, or one way in which undocumented migrants would harm the American economy.
Okay, well, let's break that down a little bit. How many undocumented migrants are in the country?
I'm unaware. I'd be willing just to accept whatever number you want me to. I hear different Trump supporters say different things. Some will say like 3 million, some will say 7 million, some will say 20 million, and I think even somebody told me like 3 billion. That was a pretty funny clip.
Well, that's ridiculous. Okay, well, let's say argument's sake, so you and I can agree on one number. Let's say 12 million.
Yeah, I don't care.
Okay, so out of the 12 million, how many do you think are contributing to the $100 billion a year that's going into our economy?
Yeah, I'd be unaware of a specific percentage, but all I know is that the demographic as a whole is they are total net productive providers. So when you say that they don't contribute
Let's
to the
pick a
economy,
number.
that's false.
I didn't say they don't. I said it
You
just
did.
costs more. So let's use
Oh.
an argumentative safe. Let's use agreed upon number of the 12 million. What percentage of the 12 million do you think are contributing to our society?
Yeah, Chase, I'm unaware, but there's
I'll say
actually another
half.
way. There's actually another way that we could determine if undocumented migrants cost our country more than they put in. Can you tell me how much money our federal government spends on undocumented migrants annually?
About 150 billion.
Okay, where's that figure coming from? Is that coming from
Well,
is that coming from the House website?
no, where
No.
it actually is coming from consumer. I forget the consumer index of it. But again, if we
No,
can just let's
I know the report that you read that off of because I've read it too, and I'm pretty sure I read it from the House
okay,
Republicans.
well,
So the issue with that report that would indicate that there's $153 billion spent on undocumented migrants annually is a disproportionate amount of that figure actually comes from like the expenditure from our federal government on like access to education, stamps or EBT for the children of undocumented migrants who are natural U.S. born citizens. When we're just isolating for just undocumented migrants and not their children, which are in our public schooling systems if they were born here, we really don't see a whole lot of government expenditure. Like, for instance, I could probably name like one federal program that I know benefits undocumented migrants, and that's going to be Medicaid expenditure on access to emergency resources in hospitals for uninsured individuals. And that's really all I could think of, which is like what, like $16 billion per year for all uninsured users of emergency rooms. And not every single one of those individuals is an undocumented migrant. But even if we were to assume every single uninsured American that uses emergency resources is an undocumented migrant, it's still the case that they pay 5 times more in federal, state, and local taxes than in which is compared to which is expended on them by our federal government. Like, could you name any other federal programs that they benefit from?
well, they do benefit from Medicare. They benefit from, this report that just came out of 3 million Social Security numbers that, were assigned to undocumented migrants. But again, let's go back to just like
Wait,
so
if
the
they're assigned a
United
social
number.
security number, then they're not an undocumented migrant, unless it's
Well,
like,
they are.
no,
It
because you'd have to say
was.
that they're like committing identity fraud.
Well, if it was, issued by the federal government just to give undocumented migrants a social security number, I mean, really, it
Undocumented,
shouldn't
no,
happen.
that's not true. No.
Okay, let's go this way, so you don't keep cutting me off. Let's just take the 12 million, and you let me choose the 12 million. You choose the percentage of that 12 million that you think would be contributing to the $100 billion a year. We know it's not 100% of them. 12 billion aren't currently working 40 hours a week and contributing that to taxes. So I came up with the 12 million. You come up with the percentage that you think are contributing to that.
So, like, once again, I don't know. But like,
Well,
I've
just pick an
already.
argument's sake number. 65%.
Well, I don't just create numbers without evidence for the sake of an
Well, we just
argument.
created
When
the
there's a
12 million.
significantly
We
better
just created
way,
the 12 million number.
you cut me off. When there's a significantly better way to evaluate the efficacy of undocumented migrants in our country, insofar as how reliant or lack of reliance they are on our government, like I'd say that the better way to delineate if undocumented migrants cost our government more than they give our government is to see how much they give our government through taxes compared to what benefits they receive, right? And when we do that evaluation, it's very simple. They are productive providers. Like, once again, I could only name like one federal benefit they get. That's access to emergency room resources. You literally couldn't name any other federal benefits they get. And it is a case that, I mean, unless you can name any other systems that they benefit from, because no, they don't benefit from Medicaid or Medicare. They don't benefit from EBT or food stamps. They don't benefit from Section 8, right? It is a case that they definitely are productive providers, right? So the only way for you to kind of get a leg ahead of me in this argument would be for you to itemize other forms of assistance that they get from our government, which you're unable to do. Therefore, you've lost.
Well, not yet, because again, we haven't come up to a consensus on the question that I've asked, and I said that doesn't have to be an accurate number, but we got to take a percentage of the 12 million people that are actually contributing to the $100 billion, whatever number you want it to be.
Wait,
I came up and said, okay,
if
65%.
you don't mind me asking you, why is that relevant?
Well, I'll tell you why it's relevant. Can we agree on
Do it.
65%? Can we agree on 50-50? Can we agree on 70-30? Whatever number you want. Which number you want?
I have no way of knowing that. I
Okay,
like the
let's just use
information.
argument and say 65% of them. Okay?
What I want you to tell me is like why it is relevant to determine
I'm
what
going to tell
percentage.
you.
Let me speak. What percentage of undocumented migrants are productive providers to the American economy, insofar as us like coming to a conclusion of the demographic as a whole helps the economy or pulls from it. Like we
I'll
don't
tell
need
you.
to know like what percentage of undocumented migrants are productive
Sure
providers
we do.
to know that undocumented migrants as a whole give our government more than they take.
No, you're wrong, and that's why let me speak now, and I'll explain to you.
What?
So, let me speak, and I'll explain to you. Let's just argumentatively say that it is 65%. 65% of what you say was 12 million people. Okay, so we already know, and we agreed that $100 billion a year is coming in from taxes. And if we want to go take that high and say that equates to a third, 30%. So that means that 65%, that 7.5 million people are earning $300 billion a year, with $100 billion being paid towards taxes at a 30% tax rate. So if you divide now whatever 65% of 12 million people is, say it comes out to 7 million people, divide that by the $200 million that is being paid to them, comes out to about $30,000 a year per person pre-tax. Now, if you take the other 4.5 million that we said, or 5.5 million that is there, and you add that same $30,000 that somebody's got to pay for them because they're not working, they're not getting any type of income coming into this for anything whatsoever. Somebody is paying that other $100 billion plus to keep them inside this country because there's no other income coming into them whatsoever. On top of that, you want to turn around and say, what is the remittance that undocumented migrants send back to their countries of origin? I mean, even if you wanted to turn around and say it was just simply 20%, you're still talking, again, $50 billion of the $200 billion that's currently being earned in this country, not being spent in this country because now it's going back to the remittance of their origin countries. So if you add all those numbers together, which are factual numbers, with the exception of knowing whether it's 65%, 70%, 80%, 10%, whatever that number may be, it doesn't necessarily benefit our economy between the money that's going back and the remaining amount of undocumented immigrants that are not participating in that $100 billion a year that's coming in.
Okay. Well, I'm just gonna like say it up front. Like everything that you just said was complete gibberish. And I could like itemize how. So like the first thing that you said was that we could determine that undocumented migrants are getting paid on average like $30,000 per year.
No,
by
I'm just
simply-
saying based on the facts
Dude,
of the
I just
$100
let you talk.
Yeah, but do it
I
right.
just let you talk for 3 minutes.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Okay. So first of all, you said that we could just merely multiply, take like an average of what the like average amount of tax paid per undocumented migrant would be, then multiply that by 3 to see what their income is. So I mean, even that evaluation to try to determine what the average income is for an individual, including undocumented migrants or citizens, is false because you don't pay taxes on every dollar you make over zero. I think that we have to consider the fact that if you're making under like I don't know what is it like $30,000 to $50,000 per year, you essentially pay like $0 in taxes. And then on top of that, it's also for us to consider the fact that you're saying, well, they don't help our economy because they could send money home. Well, it is a case that so can legal migrants. Legal migrants can also send money home. Should we stop all legal migration into America? No. So, I mean, why would this be a consideration when we're referencing undocumented migrants? And then secondly, all the money that they're taxed is not money that they're sending home. It's actually money that's being sent to our government to spend on us, right? And then third of all, you try to come up with some calculus saying that they cost more for our government to keep in our country than they give our government. I don't really see any arithmetic that you detailed to demonstrate that our government spends more on them than they spend on our government. And I think the only way for you to prove that claim would be for you to itemize the different federal systems that they benefit from. And when I had asked you to do that prior, you were unable of doing that. Can you name any federal benefits that they get apart from access to emergency rooms in American hospitals?
Well, they get food stamps, they get
No.
Medicare, they get
No.
Social Security and some.
No.
I know you say no, okay, but
You
it
go to
is
the
true.
USDA. No, it's not true. So USDA is the federal agency that is in charge of food stamps. You can go to USDA.gov and read in very clear language that food stamps are not available to non-citizens.
Yes, but you're also the one that makes the constant claim that they're benefiting our economy because it's $100 billion a year in taxes. That's like the
Got a phone call, Mr. Drees?
I did, but I sent it to the voicemail.
Then also, I have
Do
a
you know what
question.
a
What
is?
Medicare benefits do undocumented migrants receive beyond what Medicare subsidizes for access to emergency resources in American hospitals? They don't receive any. That's why, like some states, like
I'll
California,
have
have
to.
special programs like Medi-Cal
But again,
to specifically grant some forms of health care to undocumented migrants that fall below certain income thresholds. It's because undocumented
yeah, but,
migrants that fall below certain income thresholds do not receive federal benefits in the context of health care, such as Medicare. Undocumented migrants do not receive
yeah, but you're
federally funded
talking
Medicare.
federal. I'm talking as a whole universal, state, local, federal, all,
Okay. Well,
not
I mean, if
just
you want to delineate it
federal.
by the state,
You know what I'm
I mean,
saying?
I'm
You
aware
know,
of like
I'm
Medi-Cal, which
saying
operates out of the state of
all of
California.
our country. Right. So if you take, I'm not again. You want to put
Okay,
it just to the federal. I'm talking about
so
state,
far we've
local,
gotten two things.
everything.
So far you've been able to delineate two things. So undocumented migrants receive access to emergency rooms in all American hospitals when needed, and they receive Medi-Cal in the state of California. Is there any other benefits that they get?
Well, of course, they get housing. Look at what's going on. Hotels that are being paid for them in New York City. New York has spent $7 billion on housing and taking care of illegal migrants inside of our country.
Okay,
Not to
so you're
mention
actually wrong.
every single.
So the benefits that you're talking about that exist in New York City are for asylum seekers, not undocumented migrants. And asylum seekers are legal
Same thing.
migrants with residency in America, and we absolutely cannot confuse undocumented migrants with asylum seekers. That is just like literally like objectively wrong, incorrect
Well,
propaganda because asylum seeking is a legal residency status that is completely separate and distinct from undocumented migration into America.
so,
It is just simply not the same thing. One is a legal pathway to gain residency. One is undocumented entry into our country.
okay. So if you put them all together as a whole, how
Why,
many
why,
would you say
why,
there are?
why would we put asylum seekers with undocumented
Because if you had
migrants?
a past an administration that just turned around and said, listen, come over the border and just seek asylum and we'll put you through the system for asylum seeking, and then it could take you 7, 8, 9 years before you even see a court date, whether that asylum
Okay. So I just want to clarify that
was
you are now completely changing the topic of conversation.
no, you brought up that there was a
No,
difference between
no.
asylum seekers and
Because you're the
undocumented.
one that attributed the benefits that asylum seekers receive to undocumented immigrants.
Let me ask you this: did
No,
you
I don't
like
want
the
you to
one?
ask me anything until you can recognize that. I asked you to
Well,
name the benefits in which
again,
undocumented migrants in America receive, and you actually couldn't really name any.
well, I
So
did
one moment,
because you
let
were
me
just
speak. I'm gonna
talking
go
on
ahead
the
and give you.
federal
I'm
level.
gonna go ahead and finish speaking. Nat, thank you so much for the space cat. And you couldn't really name any. And I think that we kind of like agreed on two. So they receive access to emergency rooms and hospitals across our country, as well as like certain programs such as Medi-Cal in states like California. And then I asked you to name more. And then you talked about like the $7 billion in which went towards benefits for asylum seekers in New York City. So asylum seekers are not undocumented migrants. So I just want to kind of get back to the question that I asked. Please itemize the benefits that undocumented migrants receive in America. Because it is the case that you told me that they receive $153 billion per year in annual benefits. And I know that the study you're referencing, it comes from House Republicans, I've read it myself, around 80 to 90% of those benefits are going to the natural US-born citizen children of undocumented migrants that are getting an education or are relying on food stamps, etc. So when we're just talking about undocumented migrants, the amount of benefits that they receive is actually quite low. And just like without shifting the goalposts or anything like that, prove me wrong by telling me all the benefits I get. But Chase, you do have to unmute your mic. By the way, guys, I will say, like, this is the most informed, educated Trump supporter I've ever debated on immigration. And isn't it still crazy to see like the difference?
So, and to make a debate not go into an argument is the facet that you could break it up and say that people who are seeking asylum and are just waiting for court dates for 10 and 10, 15 years or 8 years or whatever the number is isn't really an undocumented migrant. My look at it is says yes it is. If the administration is just going to let you in and based on that saying okay, go into our system, you're here for seeking asylum, but we're going to put you up in hotels and we're going to spend that money. I look at that money as still money that's been spent on people that shouldn't really be here, because how many of those people, when they do receive their court date, are not going to qualify for asylum?
Exactly.
And
So
I'm
you have,
sure
you
that
have to
that's
completely
none of them,
you have to
not
completely
not so
redefine
completely.
you have to completely redefine what it means to be an undocumented migrant in order for you to make
I
a position.
agree.
So Chase, I just
I
let you speak. If
agree.
you let me, Chase, speak, that'd be great. So we define an undocumented migrant as somebody who enters into America with use of illegal means and does not have legal residency or citizenship, right? But now you have to completely change that definition, ignore that's what an undocumented migrant is, and say that an undocumented migrant is merely somebody who you don't think should be here in accordance with your preferences. Okay, well, if we accept that definition of an undocumented migrant, all of a sudden, according to me, Trump's an undocumented migrant. Elon Musk is an undocumented migrant. A lot of people in MAGA are undocumented migrants. Because I don't think Trump should be here. I don't think Elon Musk should be here. Okay, I think our country would be significantly better if they weren't here. He should just like go sit on a beach in the Caribbean and be a billionaire until he dies. Drinking like white wine with his wife until 95. Just go do that. Leave us alone. Okay, well now in accordance with your definition of undocumented migrant, Trump's an undocumented migrant.
See, with your definition of an asylum seeker, I forget the code off the top of my head, but there is a U.S. code that states anyone from any foreign country, all they have to do is step 2 feet on land in the United States, and then they can't be deported. There is a law, I forget what it's called, but there is a law. That's all somebody needs to do. So in that aspect, anybody, and there wouldn't be any difference between an undocumented migrant or asylum seeker or anything. Everybody could just come in, step 2 feet into the United States, and that's the end of that. They get to stay.
Well,
But we
the
have
big
laws.
issue with your argument is that asylum seeking is documentation. It is like you have a temporary legal status of residency in America while the proceedings of while your court proceedings for your asylum claim are being undergone. So it is the case that asylum seekers are legal and documented. And I just hate the fact that you are now dying on this hill that asylum seekers are not legal or documented.
No, that's not what I'm
to try to
dying.
further your position when it's just
Not true.
objectively false. And like,
Not what I'm saying.
sir, it is what you're saying. You're not going to be able to tell me that you're not arguing that asylum seekers are undocumented migrants after verbally and explicitly stating for around 3.5 minutes that you think under your definition they are undocumented migrants. you are now just acting in incredibly bad faith. There's over 5,000 people listening to our conversation. Maybe if we were in a room one-on-one, you'd be able to get away with this. But no, you are currently being held to your prior statements by over 5,000 people. So I think the better way for you to proceed in this conversation is not to deny that you were attempting to classify asylum seekers as undocumented migrants, but rather to just drop it, recognize that you made a false claim, and go back to my claim without shifting a goalpost by itemizing the different benefits that undocumented migrants receive, so we can do the calculus to delineate if they receive more than $100 billion in benefits annually.
Yeah, but we also got to look at it this way and say the law of asylum seekers has not changed. Donald Trump has not changed the law of asylum seekers. Joe Biden hasn't changed the law.
Full stop, man. I have thoughts on the asylum seeking practices that I'd happily share with you in a completely separate conversation, because we're not talking about the asylum seeking processes right now.
But hear my thought for 2 seconds.
I will absolutely clarify that your thoughts on the asylum seeking processes are neither here nor there as it relates to what benefits undocumented migrants receive.
But it does, if you let me finish. Because under the same laws between Biden and Trump, okay, the only thing that has changed in asylum seeking since Trump took office is the amount of people who were seeking asylum, which goes to show you that the amount of people that came in seeking asylum under Biden had to have been a false number. I mean, not a false number, but a number that just let everybody come in and seek asylum. Under the Trump administration, there is not that many people coming in seeking asylum under the same asylum laws.
Well, I mean, actually, technically, the asylum laws are different because I think on like day one, one of his EOs, is it related to immigration, did change like the threshold of in which Donald Trump could like terminate the ongoing proceedings for asylum seekers. So he basically passed like an illegal EO stating that he could terminate the current processes of any asylum seeker from the last 2 years and deport them. But like, once again, that's a completely different conversation that does not relate to my question, asking you like what benefits undocumented migrants receive in America. Like I will happily engage in a conversation with you about asylum seekers, but just like not right now. Right? Because I mean, I think that it is very important for us to continue to flesh out your first point. And I think it's funny that you are now trying to completely move away from your first point once you recognize that it's wrong. Okay, man? But like, hey, man, listen, I've been wrong a lot of my life. I bet everybody watching this stream right now has been wrong many, many times, okay? But instead of running away from that, so you can continue to hold to your biases and these preconceptions, in which are belligerently incorrect, right? You kind of confront them head on, so you could become a better person with more accurate beliefs. So what does this mean? This means that we have to go back to my question asking you what benefits undocumented migrants receive from the federal and state level governments.
Again, if you want to just classify them as undocumented migrants and not include asylum seekers that are inside this country, then not $150 billion being spent. But if you want to include all of it, there is. Now, you want to separate them between undocumented and asylum seekers, that's fine. But let me ask you another question. Do you believe in mass amnesty?
So I do believe that we should offer every single undocumented migrant in America a pathway to residency or citizenship that's not committed a violent crime. But now, just real quick, I do appreciate you for your concession there, because you just told me that, yeah, Dean, you're right. Undocumented migrants do pay more in taxes and benefits they receive from the government. So your very first point that you try to come up here and argue that undocumented migrants are bad for the American economy is now false.
Okay, but if we did combine them and we put together, if my first statement was undocumented migrants and asylum seekers cost more than $100 billion a year, would you concede to that? Or is it only because I said undocumented and left out the asylum
Well, I
seekers?
actually don't know how much asylum seekers cost. I think it's possible that that claim's true, but I'm unaware of the specific cost of asylum seekers. But I mean, I think that expenditure on asylum seekers is good. I'd almost say that like we're morally obligated to support asylum seekers in America. Like, would you spend 0.000000001% of your annual income to sustain the lives of hundreds of thousands of people? Like, sure, we might even see that you have a moral obligation to do so. Not to mention that there actually is a long-term ROI in the economic sense, because if we support these individuals while they undergo their proceedings to gain like the correct documentation to go to work to support themselves, like they'll just end up being a productive provider in America in the long term, meaning that it's a worthwhile investment with a long-term ROI. But I mean, that's just a flip side of the coin from the argument that a moral obligation would exist. Like let's just say that like you make $100,000 per year. Would you spend $1 per year to like keep 100,000 people alive? Sure. right? Would you almost say that you're making a bad decision if you'd argue that you shouldn't spend that $1? Also true, meaning that an obligation to do so might exist,
No, I don't.
regardless of the long-term economic implications.
I agree. So I know you like to talk hypotheticals in some cases to clarify a point. So let me ask you this hypothetical. Let's say Donald Trump came out tomorrow and said that he is going to grant mass asylum to all undocumented migrants who haven't committed a
And misdemeanor.
crime, but they have to vote Republican for the next 25 years. And anybody who signs up for that, they have to vote Republican for the next 25 years. What would you think of that?
I mean, I probably ask why Donald Trump is advocating for the same type of discrimination that racist white people did against black individuals. Because when you
Oh,
say
that's
that these
not
new
okay.
citizens
But
have
I'm
to vote
asking you, what
Republican
would you say?
for the next
Would you take
25
the
years,
idea or no?
basically means that these new citizens don't have a right to vote at all.
No, it means I'm just saying if it was a hypothetical, would you be for that and for all the benefits that they
I'd
do
be
for our
against, I'd be
country and
against
all
that
the
for the same
benefits that,
reason I was
you know, they
against.
are and how they're,
I'd be against
you
that
know.
for the same reason I was against voting practices that only allowed white people to vote, but then allow women or black people to vote. I think that that is literally discriminating against a group of.
Well, I didn't say
No,
they
they
could vote.
can't.
They could vote. Okay.
Which means
Well,
that
they
you
would
don't
have
have
to
a right
vote
to vote at
Republican
all.
as part of their
Saying that you
as
must vote
part
for a
of
single
their
party means that you don't
right.
have a
But if
right to
it
vote
but
at all.
in a way, I guess you're right. But what I'm saying is, if it came out as a see, the thing is, in the Democratic Party, there is like an 80% chance that once these people, receive citizenship, that's the sway that Democrats are hoping that they vote. But if it turned out that it was going to be a 90-10 Republican vote, then it would be no benefit. It would actually hurt the Democratic Party if all these undocumented migrants came into our
So
country and
I'll
started voting
reframe I'll
Republican.
reframe
So if
I'll
that was the
reframe your
case,
question.
it really wouldn't
I'll
be
reframe
for
your
the
question
people. It would
and
be,
I'll reframe my response. So instead of saying that
uh-huh.
all these individuals will be forced to vote red for the next 25 years, let's just assume that they will vote red for the next 25 years and that's their choice. Well, that's democracy and I support it. Obviously, I support them like gaining
Okay.
citizenship. I of course don't support them
Okay, but again, right. But again, we know this, and I know you. You gain your knowledge from a lot of different places, and I'm sure some of it is TV. When the TV was showing the migrants coming across the border, they certainly weren't wearing Trump shirts. They were wearing Biden shirts. So I mean, it just goes to show to the
I've
facet of
never seen an undocumented migrant wearing a
where
Biden shirt. If so, that's pretty
and
sick.
advertising works. Oh my God. It was unbelievable.
That's
What do you
awesome.
mean?
I mean,
And
if
the
so,
whole
that's fucking
it was
awesome.
all
Let's
over
go.
television.
That's
You
so
can go back
fucking
and
that's so unbelievably based. You don't even know it.
the message that Biden had
All
the
right, bro,
border
Chase, you got some
open
bad
and come
lag.
on in, no problem.
But Chase, you got some bad lag, so I'm gonna go and kick you. Move on. I am also pretty sure that he's driving. But yo, if there's like videos of like undocumented migrants coming into America and they're all wearing like these Biden hair shirts, like so unbelievably fucking based. Like I don't even know where to start. That's so cool. What's going on, Ethan? What the fuck was going on there? All right, we're going to move on to the next guest. If you're one of the 5.2 thousand people watching this stream and you do support Trump, go ahead and spam MAGA down below in that comment section. We'll get you up here for a conversation. What's going on, Mr. MAGA? Do you support Trump?
Of course.
Great. We're going to go ahead and start the live on YouTube, Mr. MAGA, so if you would just give me one moment to do that. For everybody tuning in on YouTube, what is going on? We just started off our stream for the day. We are going to go ahead and hop straight into our debates with over 100 Trump supporters. In fact, we already have our first Trump supporter, Mr. MAGA, that's his name, up on the stream right now. So, Mr. MAGA, go ahead and tell us why you support who I would classify as one of the worst presidents of our lifetimes, if not the worst president of our lifetimes.
Hey, thank you, Dean. And you can just call me Megalomaniac. No need for formalities. I support Donald J. Trump because I love guns.
Okay, I appreciate you. I just want to, I'm so sorry for cutting you off like so early on in our conversation.
Okay.
There's just a lot of people in the comment section. What does his profile picture mean, you guys? I see like a lot of people like commenting about your profile picture.
It's AI generated.
Okay, I chat, if you guys got to let me know, it's a Schnazi symbol.
I literally told ChatGPT to make a profile picture with an eagle and a cross.
Okay, it's an iron cross. Well, maybe I just need to get more up to date with like historical symbolization of things. I don't know what an iron cross is. I'll look that up. Oh my God, it is. Yeah, that's definitely an iron cross. I would heavily implore you to either just like have a spine and be like, yeah, I'm a Schnazi, so I could like dunk on you and make fun of you, or like just changing your profile picture, because like the iron cross in your profile picture is definitely like a Schnazi symbol.
Well, I figured if it was allowed with ChatGPT's TOS, it'd be cool everywhere else, and I didn't think it'd let me make a quote-unquote schmatzy symbol.
Well, I don't think that it's violating the platform's TOS, but it is definitely like ethically wrong, I'd say, to include like Schnazi symbolization within your profile picture.
Okay.
I mean, how do you feel about that?
Well, dude, like I said, I told ChatGPT to make a profile picture of an eagle and a cross.
Okay, so I mean, I do understand that you've now explained to us like 3 times like the process in which you underwent to gain that profile picture, but I mean, you're not telling me about like the morality of it. I mean, like,
Oh, the morale. Okay, yeah. I mean,
would you say it's like moral to like willingly promote Schnazi symbols?
yes, because I had no clue this was schmatzy symbol. You know what I'm saying?
Okay, well, your answer to that question should have been no, that it's not okay to promote Schnazi symbols. You just didn't know that that was a Schnazi symbol. Is that what you meant to say?
Yeah, I guess so.
Okay. All right. Well, I mean, hey, I mean, the more you know. Like, I mean, I don't know if you're telling us the truth or not. You know, I just hope you are. But anyway, so you told us that you said like we're just already off to a rocky start here.
It's all good.
So you told us that you support Trump because of guns, right?
Correct.
Okay. I have a question. Out of the last 2 administrations, which administration passed gun control and which administration did not pass gun control?
Donald J. Trump banned bump stocks.
And what did Biden and Harris do?
Whole lot of nothing. Whole lot of nothing.
Great. So you're voting for more gun control? Is that what you wanted?
No, I'm voting for the guy who didn't come out and say, "Oh, we're gonna ban these assault weapons." What I don't know what that is, an assault weapon.
Do you think that that's unconstitutional?
Yeah.
Okay, so then it wouldn't have been passed if it was unconstitutional.
What? Wait, what are you asking? Sorry, about the bump
We have
stocks?
like an incredible no about like banning ARs. We have an incredibly like conservative leaning Supreme Court. If a ban on ARs was unconstitutional, it would have been struck down before it could be implemented into federal law. So it is a case that never would have actually have occurred. And then also, if you just care about like constitutional rights, the last person you ever would have voted for would be Donald Trump, as he straight up called for the termination of articles in the Constitution in December of 2022. B, called media outlets and organizations illegal, completely disrespecting First Amendment rights. C, told NBC that he straight up was not joking about potentially running for a 3rd term, and it's something that there's ways in which it could be done, etc. And D, your profile picture just got banned off of TikTok, and I
saw
think that's
that.
awesome.
Yeah, I saw that got taken down. Well, you got what you wanted, right?
I sure did. If you're curious why I decided to let you up on this, to let you stay on the stream afterwards, it's because that was belligerently an iron cross, which was Nazi symbolization and which would be stricken down by TikTok TOS. Seems like the people watching the stream did their duty by making sure TikTok knew about it, and now it's gone, so which is a great thing. But feel free to respond to what I just said.
Yeah, so there was a lot to unpack there. Can we go one at a time?
Sure.
Yeah, so the first reason for why Donald Trump was unconstitutional is because he said he was going to suspend what now?
Well, I mean, in December 2022, he called for the termination of the Constitution.
Okay, in what context?
Well, the context was that he lost the election, and he thought that he had the right to overthrow it, and he was really mad that checks and balances, as upheld by the Constitution and executed on by Mike Pence, made his plan fail, so then he just straight up called for the termination of the Constitution.
Well, that's a W Trump right there, because if it was really stolen from him, he would have the right to call for that. And
Stolen from him?
hey, like you said, man, there are Supreme Court justices who are
So his account was just banned completely. So if you're curious, insofar as like why he just completely got cut off there, it's because his account was just 100% totally gone. So I think that we face a lot of issues with over moderation by TikTok. I mean, I face them every single day. But like the one time that this over moderation from TikTok is a great thing is with people like that. Like his entire account is just permanently toast because he used an iron cross as his profile picture. What's going on, Baldy? What a name. Do you support Trump?
Yeah.
All right, sir. Well, go ahead and tell us why.
Well, I think that.
Oh, stop. Wait, whoa. What time is it?
I don't know.
Yeah, get out of here. All right, guys. Guys, do keep in mind that if you are in that queue and you do want to come up here and have a conversation, do make sure that you are at least 18 years old and you are from America. All right, we are just looking to have some debates with Americans that either voted for Trump or support him today. The only reason why we're asking for people that support him is because a lot of people voted and changed their mind, or a lot of people couldn't vote because they turned 18 after the election, and that's who we're looking for. So if you are in the live and you are at least 18 years old, you're an American adult, and you support the president, go ahead and drop a MAGA for me down below in that comment section. We'll get you up here for a conversation ASAP, baby, as well as if you're one of the 5.5 thousand people listening to these conversations live, welcome in and do make sure that we are double tapping. And we're going to get that next guest, Mr. Ashton, up on the live literally right now. We are just looking for the next conversation. So here we go. What's going on, Aston? Do you support Trump?
Yes.
All right. What's going on, Mr. quote unquote right wing? Do you support Trump?
Hey, what's up, D? Yeah, I do support Trump. Here, I hear you're coming to Texas A&M. I'll meet you there. I look forward to talking to you in person. But yeah, I do support Trump.
Great. Awesome. So it looks like we got a little bit of a 2v1 action going on. That's awesome. Real quick, I'd really like to thank Ducky for the $20 over on Venmo, saying please start the YouTube live. I can't listen on TikTok and do other stuff. YouTube live is going, Ducky. I do appreciate you for the $20. Also, Andrew with a 1, and then AJ with a $10. Thank you so much, you guys. Everybody, please show some love to AJ, Andrew, and Ducky. You guys are all freaking phenomenal. Also, thank you so much, James, for the $30 donation over on PayPal. Thank you so much for the love, James. 300 James W's, 300 James W's. As well as Karen with the 15 and Ann with the 20. Everybody, show some love to Karen, Ann, James, Ducky, all of you very beautiful souls. But go ahead and take it away. You guys tell us why you support Trump.
Ashton, you go first. I'll let you go first, man.
Okay. So, what I support Trump is that he did the colleges, HBCUs, and he did the First Step Act, and what else he did? Well, that's about it.
Okay, so he decreased funding to HBCUs. So Obama gave HBCUs $2 billion every 4 years. So Donald Trump actually cut that down to $1 billion every 4 years, or $250 million per year. So he cut funding to HBCUs. And then Biden and Harris increased that to $4 billion every year, right? So what we see is there was some funding going to HBCUs under Obama. Trump cut it, and then Biden and Harris drastically increased it. So if you care about funding to HBCUs, a very obvious pick would have been Harris.
Well, I didn't like Harris because she's a scumbag, but
And why is that?
because she locked up a lot of black men in the 90s.
Okay, in the state of
Yeah.
California, right?
Yes, and Joe Biden is racist, and
Oh, okay, well let's talk about your first claim. So first and foremost, crime stats in the 90s from California, they actually didn't report race. Okay. Secondarily, when you're talking about how much convictions she oversaw during her presidency, and what the claim that you're specifically making what had to do with either the use or dissemination of the MDRUG, it was a total of 45 convictions. A disproportionate amount of those were for the dissemination of such. Meanwhile, right, she actually said in 2014 that we need to end the war on DRUGs, and then in 2018 she co-signed on legislation in the Senate to do exactly that. The only reason why her bill failed and the MDRUG is still federally illegal is because of Republicans like Donald Trump and his followers. So if you want to end the war on DRUGS, right, you need to vote against the Republicans.
so what about Biden by his crime bill that locked up a lot of black men?
Okay. Well, I mean, that's bad. Obviously, that's racist. Obviously, I disagree with the crime bill. But I will just ask you, how does that relate to Kamala Harris? Because if your claim is that you didn't vote for Kamala Harris because of racism, well, it is the case that Kamala Harris is not racist and Donald Trump is racist.
Well, she's in her she's was with his administration.
Okay, and I mean, listen, I have an argument to demonstrate that Biden is significantly better than Trump in the context of racism, but I don't even need to give it to you because Kamala Harris is not Biden. And if your argument is, well, Kamala Harris was around Biden, well, Donald Trump was around Who is that child? Predator. Honestly, he's so like I just forget his name. Epstein. He was really good friends with Epstein and really good friends with Diddy. So, can we say that because Diddy and Epstein were really bad people, that therefore Donald Trump is too?
in a way, but also Biden spoke at eulogy also KKK.
Yeah, I listen, man. All of like these arguments would be like incredibly relevant before Biden dropped out and Kamala Harris ran. But like Kamala Harris was the candidate that ran. Why is Kamala Harris more racist than Trump?
She's not racist. She just was.
Oh, okay. So I mean, if you like
down.
criticize, condemn, and you want to vote against racism, you should have voted against Donald Trump, since Trump was a racist candidate. Kamala Harris was not.
Well, he's not a racist.
He is
Actually,
racist.
but
He called all black people lazy in 1991, and then he affirmed that that's something he said in 1997. He denied housing applications to black individuals in 1973, and then he said that Obama was literally not even born in America, that he was born in Kenya, and that everybody should literally vote against him, which is saying that this black man should not have a job opportunity because he's a black man. It's also the case that he called for the death penalty for the exonerated Central Park Five 10 years after their exoneration, and as well as he said that you could racially profile immigrants. You could just tell which ones are good and which ones are bad by looking at them. That's a quote coming from his interview with Hannity.
but Biden was a creep, and
You keep on going back to Biden. Kamala Harris ran, man. Like I'm telling you, I would like happily have responded to all these arguments about Biden like 6 months ago, dude. But like we're like it was Kamala Harris, dude. So Donald Trump was racist. Kamala Harris was not racist. Then you also said that Donald Trump wasn't racist. So do people that aren't racist just unapologetically be racist for half their life and then continue
No.
their racism today?
he has the right to change his mind.
Well, he hasn't. He hasn't changed. Not only has he been racist for half his life, he's also never held himself accountable for said racism, never apologized for said racism, and never tried to be actively anti-racist. In fact, he is still perpetuating racism until this day, such as by doubling down on him calling for the death penalty of the Central Park Five in his debate with Hillary Clinton in 2015, doubling down on saying that you could racially profile undocumented migrants, doubling down on saying that he wants to ethnically cleanse Palestinians from the Gaza Strip and give them no right to return, doubling down on regressive economic policy in which disproportionately disadvantages black Americans, as it is the case that black Americans have a lower socioeconomic standard than white Americans because of slavery and its aftermath. Yes, he is actively racist.
Yeah, and if I could jump in here, this is kind of the reason why I support Trump. I love Trump. I love racism. W Trump. This is all W Trump. Like, I don't see what the problem is here. 1,000-year Trumpenreich. Trump will be reelected.
Go ahead, Ashton. He just wants attention.
Okay,
So we're just not going to give it to him.
so
Chat, no, chat. I'm being so seriously. Like people like that, like they're just seeking attention. They're racist, bigoted, attention seekers that don't get attention from anybody else in their life. Their mother doesn't love them. Their father doesn't talk to them in so many years. Okay, they're self-proclaimed incels, right? Because for years and years and years since middle school, nobody has been wanting to talk to them or get in a 5-foot radius. They're just attention seekers. So just we're now just going to redirect our conversation back to action. So take it away.
okay, so Kamala Harris is sometiming, like she flip flops. One day she changed her mind, and one day she laughs a lot, cackling Harris.
Okay, so you're
like,
completely
laugh,
changing the
you know.
conversation. So I just want to clarify that we were talking about racism and how you don't think that Donald Trump was a racist candidate, and then I explained to you exactly how. And I just want to clarify that your response to me describing to you how you were wrong and it is the case that Donald Trump is a racist candidate is to say that she laughs a lot.
Well,
So I have a question. What's worse for America, a woman's laugh or a recession?
recession.
Yeah, that's what I thought, okay?
Well, I have a lot to say, but I'm not gonna say it. But
Why not? Why not? You have a mic. Why don't you say it?
I just feel that a woman shouldn't lead the country, and a man should lead the country.
Are you ready to just see like the most beautiful thing ever?
I guess.
Great, because I'm excited for this. Oh my God, watch this. Why are men better at leading than women?
because in the Bible it says, um, it's just a man should lead and the wife should just do wifely duties and follow.
Great. Well, in the Bible, it also says that slavery is okay in Leviticus 25, 44 through 46, but that's neither here nor there. Assuming the Bible is accurate, and there is a God that designed men to be better at leading than women, right? And he makes that clear to you through his testimony inside of the Christian Bible, that must mean that he designed men and women differently, all right? He created men with different biology, neuroanatomy, personalities, etc., compared to women that make men the better leaders. So what are the relevant differences between men and women that makes men better at leading than women?
Can you repeat that one more time?
Sure, of course. You're saying that the Bible says so. Okay, let's accept that. Let's accept that the Bible says that men are better at leading than women, and let's accept that the Christian God does exist, and that the Christian God designed men to be better at leading than women. What does this tell us? That God must have designed men differently than women to make them better at leading. So what are the differences in the quote-unquote design of men and women that make men better at leading?
Because it's just natural for a man to lead and
Right. Well,
a
the
woman
question
to
is why.
support.
The question is why. What are the biological differences between men and women that make men naturally predisposed to being better at leadership?
Because they're stronger and they talk better and they're just, I can't explain it, but it's just what it is.
I think it's funny that you, a man, say men talk better than women, then say that you can't explain it. But going off of your first point that men are stronger than women, I don't think that physical strength has anything to do with leadership ability. And I'll demonstrate this to you. I have a question. Who's the leader, the football coach or the football players?
Can you repeat that one more time?
Who's the leader, the football coach or the players?
Well, the football coach,
And who's physically stronger?
the football players,
And who's the leader, the president or the Secret Service?
the Secret Service,
No, the president is a leader. And who's stronger? The Secret Service. In fact, can you name one structure of leadership that exists anywhere in the world that is purely determined off of physical strength?
Can you repeat that one more time?
Can you name one structure of leadership anywhere in the world that is purely determined off of physical strength?
Can you rephrase that?
Okay, there's structures of leadership in organizations, in companies, in nations, in military, in sports, in cooperatives, in any time that humans come together to do something, there's usually some type of structure of leadership involved. Okay?
Yes. Hmm.
So name one structure of leadership anywhere in the world that is purely determined on the basis of physical strength.
Okay, you got me there.
All right, so physical strength does not make you a better leader. Okay, so when you told me that, well, men are better at leading than women because they're physically stronger on average, that point is now null. So, well, back to my main question, what are the differences between men and women that make men better at leading?
I can't answer that.
Okay, and you can't answer that because they don't exist. Okay, and why don't these differences between men and women exist that make men better at leading? Because men aren't better at leading than women. I actually very heavily, vehemently disagree with making such a broad, far-reaching claim about the generalized leadership ability of individuals predicated on their gender identity, because I don't think that one's gender identity tells us anything about how good they are at leading. That's like saying that people that tend to wear red shoes are better at leading than people that tend to wear orange shoes. It's just a completely irrelevant trait to leadership abilities.